Welcome, and thank you for tuning in. You're listening to the Beyond 50 radio program. I'm Daniel Davis. On the program today, we're being joined by a guest who has been deeply connected to nature since she grew up and managed farms her whole life. She's also been a mother of 3, caring for others has been her profession since she was a child. Born a gifted artist and healer, our guest has finally made the leap to professionally offer these unique skills to the world. So what we're going to do is we're going to discover how we can take a wonderful journey down what is known our energy river of life. Our guest is a practitioner of hypnosis, Reiki, neuro-linguistic programming, and intuitive counseling. We're going to discover what it's like to spend some time with her and explain how she combines the art as part of self-healing. I'd like to welcome to the Beyond 50 radio program today. Our guest is Sandra Caldwell. Sandra, thank you for being on the program today.
Good morning, Daniel. Thank you so much for having me.
Now, how did you get started with this work? What inspired you to move in this direction and collect this interesting baggage of tools, if you will?
Yeah, well, I think it's always been with me all my life. I've concentrated more on the art up until about 5 years ago, and there were events in my life and family members that needed healing, and I wanted to be a more active part of that. So I wanted to explore our alternative ways of healing. So I looked into the Reiki and hypnosis and found that they were very effective.
Now, what was it about these modalities that you thought were or felt were more effective than maybe other ways that you might pursue?
I see a society that is easily handed out drugs for various symptoms or situations, and a lot of people becoming addicted to those drugs and a lot of side effects. So I just felt like there was a better way of approaching or helping the situation. So, just kind of pulling away from the drug scene and having a more natural healing answer. Yeah. So I think, that was it.
Now, that sounds really interesting.
It is. It's extremely interesting. Once you start diving into other options of healing, then you see that there are a lot of choices. And so I just focused on a couple of those choices, and I started with being able to help my family members and myself, and then I decided to take it one step further and go out there and start my own practice.
Now, Sandra, why combine, for instance, hypnosis and Reiki? Describe, first of all, what the modality of Reiki actually is.
Reiki is an old Japanese technique that they use to reduce stress and promote healing. And the word itself is actually made of 2 Japanese words, Rei meaning higher power and Ki meaning the life force energy. So what it really means is spiritually guided life force energy. And it treats your whole person, including emotions, mind, body, spirit. And it just helps you to feel relaxed and peaceful. And when that happens, then the healing can be more effective. And as far as hypnosis goes, that reaches to your subconscious level and allows more of the healing to come through. And when I do the sessions, I don't necessarily have to find out to use both the hypnosis and the Reiki. But what I have found is that people prefer it together because it opens the person up to a state of allowance where the healing can be more profound. And everyone knows that if you are less stressed, you heal a lot quicker. So if I take you through a beautiful step-by-step visualization, it helps you to be in control of your own healing process.
Well, that certainly makes a lot of sense. There's no doubt about that. I'm curious, if someone were to come to you for guidance and healing, what would that look like?
Well, you would walk into my office, and there would be some nice healing music playing in the background, and you would probably see some crystals around you to admire or even to hold on to during a session. And you could lie down on a comfy couch or have a reclining chair with a big soft blanket and get all comfortable, and I would take you through a beautiful healing guided meditation that lasts probably about 20 minutes or so, and it just helps you relax and de-stress. And after I do that, I would begin the Reiki with light touch. I start at the top of your crown, and I work down through your chakras and your major joint areas, and if I feel like I need to stay in certain areas longer, then I do. And that usually takes probably a good 40 minutes. And then I slowly bring you back into the room and talk about any how you feel and the effects of it. So, yeah, that's what it would look like.
Ah, that seems reasonable enough. I'm curious, as people decide to go in this direction versus maybe other modalities, it's interesting that you also bring in what is known as a intuitive approach to counseling to tie all this together. Now, tell us how that intuitive part works. Is that the first step in all of this, or is it just kind of move along with everything else in tandem?
You know what? I found that this just naturally began to happen during my Reiki sessions. I would receive messages or visions during the session with me and while I'm doing Reiki. And if a person was open to it, then I would go ahead and share those messages and visions. And I felt like it gives the clients, a wider vision of any kind of information that they may need to receive in order to heal. And after I get those visions and share them with the people, then I take it one step further and do an angel card reading. And that usually expands or mimics the messages that I get during the Reiki session. And it gives the clients validation and guidance to what they are doing or where they are going. And I've always felt like it was well received and pretty exciting.
Sounds that way. I was going to ask you, what is it about the work that you do that really enthralls and consumes you, if you will?
I just feel like people can feel how sincere I am at really wanting to try and help them and to guide them. And I guess I've always been that person that everyone goes to for advice all my life. And people would often say something like, I don't know why I'm telling you this, or I never told anyone this before, but I feel safe telling you. So I think I just have a natural ability to make people feel safe in order to talk to me in an open way. And I do feel the information I get is directly from source, and I have learned to not question the images or messages I get and just to say whatever comes to me, even if it doesn't make sense to me.
You know, I like that you said that because we tend to live in a world where we want to play it safe. We tend to look out and say, well, what are the rules that govern the general populace? In other words, following the herd, if you will. And too many people don't trust the intuition. I mean, we crave it. We want to learn how to develop this intuition, this intuitive instinct. But, you know, and there's certainly a lot of money being made from people who will certainly offer books and workshops and seminars and weekend retreats teaching you how to do this. But the fact is, you were somebody who came across this and recognized it was a natural ability or your special talent, if you will. That must have taken some courage for you to move in that direction. I'm sure that you probably have friends or perhaps even family that started scratching their heads and saying, you know, what are you getting involved with this for? Don't you think you might want to take a more traditional path to healing that makes a lot more sense? At least to them, anyway.
Yeah, you're so right, because it is something that you do need a lot of courage to step out into the world and let your gifts be known. And, you know, I'm actually really feeling a huge shift in the world these days, and feeling like these modalities are more accepted into the world, and I'm pleasantly surprised at this turnaround. But as I move through my world, I do find that some people are more accepting than others. So I tend to maybe open up more to the ones that are more accepting, and I pare down a little bit more, or try to explain what I do to other people as, you know, just being a counselor or something like that they will understand. But like I said, I am happy to see that I really do feel that there's a huge change happening, and it's exciting to be a part of it.
We're certainly moving into a world where we're getting away from the idea of what tradition actually means, as opposed to being creative and learning to trust your instinct or your gut to move in a direction that most fulfills not only you, but the way that you shine that specific light out into the world to allow others to do the same. And I know that one of the things that I had talked about earlier that I think is really interesting to bring up, because I could guess the answer here, but it's going to be a lot nicer, of course, hearing it from you. But that, you know, as you've been an artist pretty much all your life, you know, what is the kind of connection to that and healing that people experience?
That's a great question, and I think that it all comes from the same place. I feel like my art comes from a higher source, and I feel like the healing and my intuition comes from a higher source, and it's just a matter of tapping into it, a place where you can tune in and everything else around you just seems to fall away. Time seems to go by slower, and it's like you're in a different dimension even. I feel like it's all a gift, and I think we all have these gifts, but it's just a matter of tuning into it. And I think, for example, if I'm painting an animal, I may try to connect with that animal's soul, or hopefully when someone views my painting, they'll be able to feel and see the soul of that animal. And I think the same thing happens when I am doing the healing or the counseling. I can really feel or see the soul of a person. And in a gentle and loving way, just help them to see their own soul and their true self and hear and feel their own inner knowing and kind of tap into it. So it's just a way of expression. And it's nice to be able to connect with other people through my art and doing it that way.
Well, I thought this was an important question because we live in a world that today makes us doubt our creativity, makes us doubt that it has value, that there's some particular way that it's supposed to happen based on a measured success, for instance. Well, how well is everybody accepting this? What kind of money are you making? Things like that. And to give you an idea, I remember when I first got into broadcasting. And I started off as a volunteer, but I was working at a wonderful place that was a broadcasting center that was part of the Public Broadcasting System Network. Now, PBS, most people know, they produce things like Sesame Street and NPR and things like that. And so when I would tell people what I was doing, they would say, well, that sounds pretty cool. How much do they pay you to do that? And I remember at the time having this feeling inside like, well, I'm not being paid really anything. And I felt like that was a problem, but the fact is when I would step away from it, just even for a little bit, I'd realize, I'm really missing something here. There's something in me that really pulls and helps me enjoy doing this, and plus, who I was meeting, what I was able to do, it goes on and on. And the fact is I began breaking away from that idea of, well, my measure of success is based on me being able to do what I enjoy doing, having the freedom and the creative control to do it, and just the marvelous guests that I had coming in from around the world that were really helping me to hone this particular skill. And that's what I mean, that we sometimes take a look at this creative process and we produce, let's say, a painting or a drawing, and it may not measure up to, let's say, somebody who's good at sketching or illustrating that does comic books, for instance. Well, if that's the direction you want to go, then you certainly work at it. But the point is, how do you feel? What does it bring to you when you engage in that process? And that's why I felt that would be an important question, especially for someone like you to answer. That way people would kind of realize, well, maybe I should move in that direction a little bit more often than I do.
I agree fully with you on that. And I taught art for years and years, teaching out of my studio, and I truly feel like there is no right way or wrong way to create art. And it's just a process of putting the paint or drawing the picture. And during that process, a person learns something about themselves, and they put certain colors on their canvas because they're attracted to those colors, and there's a reason why they're attracted to those colors. And they apply them onto the canvas in a certain way because they feel like that's what's true to them, whether that's triangular, sharp edges or more rounder, smoother edges and purples and greens or whatever they're attracted to. Like I said, there's no right way or wrong way. It's all a healing process. It's how you feel when you're actually creating the art, and that's what you want to promote. That's what you want to bring out in a person and help them to get to that place, that in the zone place, and that connected place where they're tapped in to their true selves and they're not being judged and they're not expected to have any certain kind of outcome. And for them to experience that, then they can take that with them and use that in other parts of their lives as well. Being
able to trust in the process rather than the expectation of the end result, in other words.
Exactly.
That's always real nice. Now, tell me, what do you experience as you're working with someone?
Oh, that's such a loaded question. I experience so much, and um, everything from when I begin a Reiki session, I just first tune in and connect with Source, and connect with the person that I am working with, and I get messages and visions. A lot of times I will receive a various range of visions, like, for example, a lot of times, almost with every person that I'm with during the sessions, I'll get some kind of an animal totem, and whether that's anything from a crocodile to a cricket to a butterfly or a wolf or what, but that animal has a message to bring to that person, and my job is to share that with the person. And later the person goes and looks up to see what the animal totem means, and they find out what resonates with them, and what life lesson that animal has for them. Also, during the sessions, the messages or visions I receive a lot of times relate to the chakra areas that I'm working in, such as if I'm hovering over your ears, and if I receive some kind of like a sharp pain in my hands, to me that's saying that the words either you say to yourself or words that you are hearing are harmful to you. And so during the session I'll share that with them, and not during the session. I wait until we're all done, and then I'll take notes, and then we'll talk about it. But we'll talk about, what around you is causing you to have harsh words. Where is that coming from? And then we talk a little bit more about that and expand on it. So, that's kind of a little bit about what I experienced during the session. And like I said before, sometimes it may even be funny visions that I get, and I may giggle a little bit, and at the end I'll share it to him and say, I don't know what this means, but this is what I got, and then I'll just tell them, and then they go, oh yeah, that I know exactly what you're talking about.
Right, no kidding. I think that's really interesting, because I can just imagine in a session as it wraps up, people sit there and realize, I kind of really knew the truth the whole time. I mean, certainly going to someone like you to be coached to come to that point is, but I think what you do is you also create that environment that allows them to open up, as you were mentioning earlier in the program, that people feel they can trust in this process. And you kind of wonder what happens in a person's life, and certainly I'm sure it's just as diverse as people themselves, but that causes them to feel that they can't reach out and trust, who they are out in the world.
Yeah, you're right when you say trusting, because it's all about your upbringing and the environment that you were brought up in, and the do's and the don'ts, and more of a black and white upbringing and life situation. And then, eventually they may open up to other ways of thinking, but when somebody is brought up in kind of a black and white situation, they don't even know or even entertain the ideas of other options being out there. So it's just what they're exposed to and what they learn throughout their lives and what they bring to that moment. And so that's kind of how I guide them, too. I kind of get an understanding of where they're coming from and what they know and what they're comfortable with, and just go with whatever they're comfortable with and don't try and push anything on them that they're not comfortable with.
Now, what do people generally come to you for?
There's a wide range of things that people come to me for, such as, oh gosh, if you feel like you're moving through life with mud up to your middle and you're really sluggish and it's really difficult and you're just kind of sludging your way through, feeling like that, or a foggy brain if you can't really seem to focus or to get things moving in the right direction, or it helps with healing past traumas, or even if you have a heartache or a breakup, or you just got out of the hospital and you had an operation, or you just moved to a new area or a job change. All of those things are negative blocks. And I think of it like a river. And if you can imagine a river flowing smoothly, but over a period of time it gets branches and twigs and debris and trash in the river, and it causes the river to block and go off course or not run as smoothly. So everybody's debris and sticks and trash are things that happen in their life, sicknesses and relationships, and like I said, just moving and stresses or school, all those things can cause you to have blockages in your personal river that flows through you. So if you want to think clearer, if you want to move through life smoother, things going easier, and just being able to create a life that you want, then one way of doing that is coming to me, and I help remove those blockages in your body and help you with all of those situations.
Mm-hmm. I'm reminded of the movie Up in the Air starring George Clooney. Are you familiar with that movie?
Yes, it's been a while, but yes.
Yeah, it reminds me because you were talking about how a lot of times it sounds to me that people are really trying to find personal expression and fulfillment. You know, they went along doing what people like their family and friends told them would be the way to go. It's always everybody always seems to be looking out for our best interest as long as they don't have to be involved in the process. And there was a scene where she's with the young lady that decides to change what he does. And what he does is he professionally goes out and fires people. Not the most exciting job, but he really enjoys what he does, not for the aspect of doing that, but I think it's because he understands inherently that he's going into companies that have basically burned people out. Yeah. And now he's firing them, but what he says is maybe you need to, as he's describing the young college graduate, I don't think you really understand what it is I do. And what it is I do is I make the abyss tolerable. I mean, think about what it's like to be fired from a job. I mean, just all these feelings and ideas about yourself that you have. But the one scene that comes to mind is when he's sitting there with her, and here's this gentleman that they're firing, and you know, he's making $90,000 a year, so forth and so on, and he finally describes to the fact that he says, well, what do I tell my kids, And he says, well, why do you think we love professional athletes? And he gives his answer. He says, no, that's why we like them. But what we like them is because these people have the courage to follow their dreams. And, was saying, the way you inspire your children as a father is by showing that you're capable of not only doing that, but of being willing and demanding that you do that for yourself.
Yes.
And, it's interesting because you see that moment where the guy sits back in his chair and he realizes, and then the question is asked, how much did they pay you your first year to give up your dreams? And you can see that he gets this. He goes, something like $22,000 a year. But think of how often many of us sell out to that. We don't mean to, but it seems like we get pigeonholed, get out there, earn a living, maybe get a few toys and things like that, that might make you happy. The fact that you can't stand that you're not going in that direction of the unknown, because going after your dreams, isn't easy. It just isn't. But it doesn't have to be hard either. And I can imagine, for instance, the kind of work you do, and I know I've interviewed people in the modalities of natural healing and so forth, and it's not an easy process. It's something you sincerely need to know you were meant to do. And it all just kind of works itself out if you just allow it to happen.
Exactly. You find that when you're moving in the direction that you're meant to, or is your true self, then it's a lot easier to move in that direction, because there aren't the blocks that come up, such as, let's say I wanted to be a lawyer instead. And I would find that job very difficult, because I would come up upon so many blocks and it wouldn't feel right, and it would be so difficult, and then my gut would be turning, and my mind would be messed up, and it just wouldn't feel right. So what I try to do personally is to listen to my body and listen to and see the signs around me. If you're going in the right direction, then things do unfold in front of you as they should. Like all of a sudden an office space will appear just when you're looking for it, or people will come into your lives and give you what you're needing in that moment, or all of a sudden you'll come across some information that is perfect for you in that moment. And it's almost like going, step by step, and the lights are turning on as you go. Like, go over here, okay, and go over here, and just trying to follow that light and keep that momentum going. And if you come across a roadblock, you go, oh, okay, that's not the way I'm supposed to go. So I turn around and find an easier path and tune in and listen to where I go next.
That's where something like meditation might be good, too. You just kind of sit and say, what's my next answer here? Shut the noise down and open up to the possibilities. I remember, as I was talking about earlier, getting involved in broadcasting, and this was probably right around 1999, I believe it was, and I couldn't believe how fast everything was working. I expected there was this long process, lots of education, just to be a radio broadcaster. And the preconceptions that I had about it. In fact, one particular time I stopped into a radio station. There were these two women sitting out in the office area there. It was real quiet. But I said, I'm going to go in there and I'm just going to talk to these people. Now, as I did, there was not only the station manager was there, but I think it was the program director as well. So these were people that would be, if you want to work here, and But what I found so unique about the experience was that they were not only open and receptive, but very warm about, yeah, go ahead and give us your resume, because I just described why I was there. And I said, and here's really what was in my mind. I don't know why. God, I had this feeling there would be a barbed wire fence around with security guards and machine guns. Why I would feel that way, I have no idea. But I did that, and they were very encouraging about, yeah, go ahead and pursue this. And then so as I did sometime a little bit later, and I came across the place that I started everything at, was that I had gotten done doing an interview with somebody that I met one-on-one with, in the station, which was really a very enjoyable experience to have, is that I was listening to a book on tape, and it was a relatively nice sunny early afternoon, and I was kind of caught in this really wonderful reverie about what was going on, how I was doing these things. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, this van somehow just sort of appeared in front of me. It was a blue van, I think. And on the license plate, of course, more in text style today, because nobody spells anything out anymore.
Right.
It said, "God bless you." Aww. What are the odds of seeing a license plate that says that?
I know.
And I just was like, wow, and that's where you're on the right path, because you get those messages and say, okay, you're paying attention, and like you said, the roadblocks kind of come in there to say, hey, wait, now this is the road that you're supposed to be on here, no matter how crazy it seems. And
no matter how crazy it seems, yes.
And I think that's where the inspiration for others, when they finally see you break through, then you start hearing things like, well, I knew you had it in you all the time. Well, that isn't what you said 5 or 6 years ago when I was doing this. Pretty exciting stuff.
And that whole turn of events happened for you when you listened to that inner voice about going, hey, I think I'll go in here and talk to these people. And you don't really know why, but you just take kind of that brave turn, and you go with it, and you approach these people, and one thing leads to another. So, yeah, definitely. And the more you do that, the more you see it and you feel it, too. And it comes in such a wide range of ways. Like some people say the numbers 111, or certain, like you said, words will appear in messages on signs as you're driving down the road. You just got to listen to it.
And how do you know, as you work with clients and you describe this process to them, that they know that that's right?
Well, it still all goes back to how it makes you feel when it's right. How are you breathing? Are you taking just nice, deep, relaxing breaths, just releasing and relaxing, or are you tensing up and going, oh, this doesn't feel right? But the way it makes them feel, I think, really surprises them. And they're like kind of in an oh wow mode, and it just truly opens the eyes to a lot of people at like, oh, this is how I'm supposed to feel, and this is the right way of moving through my life. And it doesn't have to be that difficult, and there are some tools that I didn't know that I had and I can use to help me in certain situations. So yeah, it's just a matter of learning about that and learning how it feels and how wonderful it can be.
I wonder sometimes as you work with people, when they perhaps, if you ask this question, what is it that you want? What do you want to see or experience in your life that you'd like to see happen? Mm-hmm. And once they answer that, then you might ask the question, why do you want that in your life? Do you ever feel or sense that people stumble on that question?
A lot of times. A lot of times people may give a generic answer just because that's what they're used to doing. And then you start working with them a little bit more, and you discover, maybe that isn't exactly what they thought they needed or they thought they wanted, and you do a little bit more digging and tapping into maybe even their inner child, and through their inner child, then they're able to reveal what they truly do need and want.
I'm reminded of George Clooney, back to that movie we were talking about earlier, Hey, aren't you supposed to be consoling me? He says, look, I'm not a psychologist, I'm a wake-up call.
Yep.
Well, it's certainly been wonderful to have you on the show here, Sandra. Could you tell us how people can find out about you and your work, things like that?
Well, sure. You can find me on my website. It's crystalclear.life. And also, every Wednesday from 12 to 2, I give mini intuitive Reiki sessions that are about 20 minutes long at Sacred Money Studios in Multnomah Village, just to give everybody a feeling about what I do. Otherwise, you can call me and make an appointment at 503-781-5815.
Very good. And the website, again, is crystalclear.life.com?
Yes.
.com?
Yeah.
Well, very good. Sandra, thank you so much for joining us here today and sharing your gift to the world, and hopefully people will decide to move in that direction and say, well, what's life got in store for me? It may take a tremendous change, but it's going to be worth it, because we're, going to live here once. We might as well be experiencing our life with what we were brought here to do.
Exactly. It was such a joy talking with you, Daniel.
You bet, Sandra. You enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay, thank you.
We want to thank you, the listeners out there, for joining us. You can also discover more. Visit us at beyond50radio.com. That is the number 50. We encourage you to sign up for our weekly e-news updates and discover what's going on in the world of Beyond 50, as well as upcoming programs. I'm Daniel Davis. Thank you for joining us. This is the Beyond 50 radio program. Remember, live your day past halfway.